The breaking point. Commander Elena Ramirez stared at the holographic display, her dark eyes reflecting the red markers of destroyed human vessels scattered across the Ta City system. The battle had lasted less than 20 minutes. 32 Earth ships gone. Just like that. "Play it again," she ordered, her voice steady despite the hollow feeling in her chest. The AI complied, projecting the entire engagement from start to finish. The Kroner battleships had emerged from hyperspace with practiced precision, their crystalline hulls gleaming against the backdrop of stars. Earth's defense fleet had responded exactly as trained, forming up into textbook defensive positions. And it hadn't mattered at all. The Kroner's quantum lance weapons had torn through human shields like they were made of paper. Their point defense systems had swatted down missiles and energy projectiles with contemptuous ease. It was the fourth such defeat in as many months, and each time the story was the same. Human technology, despite years of advancement, remained hopelessly outmatched. "Commander," Captain David Chen's voice broke through her thoughts. "The Defense Council is waiting." Ramirez nodded, taking one last look at the tactical replay before following Chen through the corridors of Luna Command. Her boots echoed against the metal floor as she walked, mind racing through possibilities, searching for answers that seemed increasingly out of reach. The council chamber was packed when they arrived. Representatives from every major spacefaring nation sat around the circular table, their faces illuminated by the soft blue lighting. Admiral Jackson, head of the United Earth Defense Force, stood at the center. "Commander Ramirez," he acknowledged, "your analysis of the Ta City engagement." Ramirez stepped forward, activating her neural link to project the battle data. "The Kroners are advancing faster than our intelligence suggested. Their quantum lance technology has improved by an estimated 40% since our first encounter. Our best shields," she paused, choosing her words carefully, "might as well not exist." Murmurs of concern rippled through the chamber. A Chinese representative spoke up. "Then we must accelerate our quantum research, redirect more resources." "No," Ramirez interrupted, earning surprised looks from around the table. "Respectfully, that's exactly what we shouldn't do." She manipulated the holographic display, zooming in on a Kroner battleship. "We've spent 5 years trying to match their technology. 5 years of pouring resources into copying their approach to space warfare. And we're further behind now than when we started." "What are you suggesting, Commander?" Admiral Jackson asked, his expression curious. Ramirez took a deep breath. What she was about to propose would either end her career or change the course of the war. "We need to stop trying to fight like the Kroners. We need to fight like humans." She brought up historical footage from Earth's naval warfare era. In the 20th century, aircraft carriers revolutionized naval combat. They'd proved that you didn't need the biggest guns to win. You needed reach, flexibility, and the ability to project force across vast distances. The display shifted to her preliminary designs. "I'm proposing we build supercarriers. Not warships, launch platforms. Massive vessels designed to carry hundreds, eventually thousands of small, AI-augmented fighters. While the Kroners focus on perfecting their capital ships, we'll overwhelm them with swarms of craft too numerous and agile to effectively counter. The resource requirements would be astronomical," the European Union representative protested. "Less than continuing to build ships that get destroyed in minutes," Ramirez countered. "The Kroners have spent centuries perfecting their approach to space warfare. They expect us to keep trying to match them shot for shot. They don't expect us to completely change the rules of engagement." She brought up more detailed schematics. "We have advantages they don't. Our AI integration is more advanced. Our pilots are trained to think creatively, to adapt. Combined with swarm tactics and carriers that can launch fighters faster than anything ever built." She let the implications sink in. Admiral Jackson studied the designs, his expression thoughtful. "The risks would be significant if these carriers were lost." "We're losing already, sir," Ramirez said quietly. "At least this gives us a fighting chance." The chamber fell silent as the council members considered her words. Finally, Admiral Jackson spoke. How long would it take to build the first carrier? With emergency protocols and full resource allocation, 18 months. We've already begun preliminary engineering work. Ramirez met his gaze steadily, daring him to comment on her presumption. To her surprise, he smiled. Of course you have. He turned to address the council. Ladies and gentlemen, I move we authorize Commander Ramirez's proposal under the codename Project Atlas. All in favor? Hands rose around the table, some quickly, others with more hesitation. But in the end, the vote was unanimous. Ramirez felt a weight lift from her shoulders, replaced by a surge of determination. As the council members filed out, Admiral Jackson approached her. I hope you're right about this, Commander. Because as of now, you're in charge of Project Atlas. Don't make me regret this promotion, Admiral Ramirez. Ramirez straightened, accepting both the responsibility and the new rank. Thank you, sir. We won't fail. Looking at the preliminary carrier designs floating above the table, she allowed herself a small smile. The Kroners thought they'd taught humanity a lesson about technological superiority. Instead, they'd pushed humans to do what they did best: innovate, adapt, and overcome. The age of the supercarriers was about to begin, and with it, the course of the war would change forever. Project Atlas. The orbital manufacturing station above Mars buzzed with unprecedented activity. Through the vast observation window of her temporary office, Admiral Ramirez watched as construction drones swarmed around the skeletal framework of humanity's first supercarrier. Even incomplete, the vessel's scale was breathtaking. Nearly 4 kilometers of advanced alloys and cutting-edge technology taking shape against the red planet's backdrop. The void space compression systems are failing again, Dr. Maya Zhang announced as she entered the office, her holographic displays trailing behind her like electronic breadcrumbs. The lead engineer's usual composure showed cracks of frustration. We can't maintain stable field integrity beyond 60% capacity. Ramirez turned from the window. Show me. The holograms coalesced into a detailed visualization of the carrier's fighter base. The design relied on revolutionary space-folding technology to store thousands of fighters in a physically impossible space. In theory, it was brilliant. In practice, the power requirements are crushing us, Maya explained, manipulating the display. We can generate the fields, but maintaining them. The energy bleed is massive. At this rate, we'd need a small star to power the carrier. What about the quantum core designs from Dr. Patterson's team? Not ready. We're trying to solve too many impossible problems at once. Maya collapsed into a chair, running her hands through her short black hair. Maybe the council was right. Maybe we're reaching too far. Ramirez studied the holographic readouts, her mind racing. What if we're thinking about this wrong? She mused. We're trying to create permanent void space pockets. What if we made them temporary instead? Maya sat up straighter. Go on. Instead of maintaining stable fields constantly, we create them only when we need to launch or recover fighters. The rest of the time, the fighters stay in normal space, just compressed somehow. The engineer's fingers flew across her displays, running calculations. Like a cosmic accordion. She muttered. Yes, yes. We could use metamaterial arrays to create localized space-time distortions. The power requirements would be intense but brief. Much more manageable. A small smile crossed Ramirez's face. One problem down, about 1,000 to go. The next crisis came 3 days later in the form of Captain James Wilson, head of fighter operations. The neural interface is killing our pilots, he reported grimly during the morning briefing. The simulation runs are showing severe mental fatigue after just 30 minutes of high-intensity combat scenarios. The human brain isn't meant to process that much tactical data simultaneously, Dr. Sarah Chen, their chief neurologist, explained. We're asking pilots to maintain awareness of dozens of fighters while coordinating with AI systems and responding to threats. It's overwhelming their neural architecture. Ramirez frowned. The neural interface was crucial to their strategy. Without it, pilots couldn't effectively control the multiple drone fighters that would accompany each manned craft. What about the AI assistance protocols? That's part of the problem, Sarah admitted. The AI thinks too fast. It's flooding the neural link with more data than the human mind can process. We either need to dumb down the AI significantly. Unacceptable, Ramirez interrupted. The whole point is to combine human creativity with AI processing power. Or we need to completely redesign how humans and AI interact. The solution came from an unexpected source. Dr. Victor Santos, a quantum computing specialist who'd been working on the carrier's main systems, heard about the neural interface problem during lunch. 2 days later, he burst into Ramirez's office without bothering to knock. "We don't need to process everything," he exclaimed by way of greeting, his excitement palpable. "The human brain already filters out most sensory data it receives. We just need to teach the AI to do the pre-filtering." The idea was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of raw data, the AI would send only the most relevant information, learning from each pilot's responses to refine its filtering algorithms. Within weeks, the modified neural interface was showing promising results. The breakthroughs and setbacks continued. The revolutionary magnetic launch system, designed to send fighters into combat at unprecedented speeds, worked perfectly in simulations but kept melting its containment housing in real tests. The solution involved exotic materials borrowed from the Martian mining industry. The carrier's point defense grid, essential for protecting the massive vessel, drew so much power it interfered with other systems. A brilliant young engineer solved that by designing a distributed network that could share energy between weapons, ensuring maximum efficiency. 6 months into the project, Admiral Jackson visited the construction site. Ramirez gave him the full tour, showing off their progress while carefully avoiding the sections still giving them trouble. "Impressive," he admitted, watching a test of the new fighter launch system. "But the Kroners aren't sitting idle. Our latest intelligence suggests they're developing even more powerful weapons." "Let them," Ramirez replied with quiet confidence. "They're still thinking in terms of bigger guns and stronger shields. They don't understand what's coming." As if to underscore her point, a squadron of prototype fighters streaked past the observation window, their formation controlled by a single pilot using the new neural interface. The machines moved with impossible coordination, demonstrating the marriage of human intuition and artificial precision that would soon change the face of space warfare. "We're not just building a bigger ship," Ramirez continued. "We're creating something entirely new. A mobile base that can deploy overwhelming force anywhere it's needed. The Kroners have spent centuries perfecting their way of war. We're about to show them a completely different one." Jackson nodded slowly. "How long until it's ready?" 3 months until preliminary trials. The HSS Atlas will launch on schedule. As the Admiral departed, Ramirez returned to the observation window. The carrier's hull was nearly complete now, its massive form blotting out the stars. Soon, humanity would have its answer to Kroner superiority. Not a copy of their technology, but something uniquely human, a combination of innovation, adaptability, and the unwavering determination to forge their own path among the stars. First contact. First blood. Captain Sofia Torres stood at the helm of HSS Atlas, her hands resting lightly on the neural interface console as the massive vessel moved through its final launch preparations. Through the bridge's panoramic viewport, Mars hung like a red jewel against the black velvet of space. "All systems showing green," reported Commander Aidan Walsh from the operations station. "Engineering confirms quantum core is stable at 98% efficiency. Fighter squadrons report ready for launch drills." Torres nodded, feeling the subtle hum of the carrier's systems through her neural link. After 18 months of development and testing, the Atlas was finally ready for its maiden voyage. At her station, Dr. Maya Zhang monitored the void space compression systems she'd helped perfect, while Captain Wilson coordinated with the fighter squadrons from his tactical position. "Begin launch sequence," Torres ordered. "Take us out, nice and easy." The Atlas's revolutionary drive system engaged, pushing the massive vessel away from the Martian shipyards with surprising grace. Despite its enormous size, the carrier moved with precision that would have been impossible with conventional engines. As they cleared the orbital installations, Torres allowed herself a small smile. Step 1 complete. The smile vanished as multiple alert signals flashed across the tactical display. Multiple fold space ruptures detected, Walsh announced, his fingers flying across his console. 3 Kroner battleships emerging at bearing 047, range 200,000 kilometers. Torres's mind raced. They weren't supposed to encounter enemy forces this close to Mars. The Atlas was scheduled for 3 weeks of space trials before any combat operations, but the Kroners had just handed them an opportunity they couldn't ignore. "Sound general quarters," she ordered, her voice calm despite the adrenaline surging through her system. "Launch fighter squadrons Alpha through Delta. Combat configuration Theta." The carrier's massive hangars sprang to life. The new void space compression systems performed flawlessly, unfolding fighters into launch position as the magnetic acceleration system charged. Within minutes, something unprecedented in space warfare began to unfold. Instead of the dozen or so fighters a conventional carrier might launch, the Atlas disgorged hundreds. Wave after wave of spacecraft emerged, each pilot neural-linked not only to their own fighter, but to multiple eye-controlled drone craft. The space around the carrier came alive with human ingenuity and machine precision. On the Kroner vessels, tactical officers stared in confusion at their sensor readings. Their combat doctrine had no framework for what they were witnessing. When they finally reacted, it was according to their standard playbook, forming a triangle formation to bring their quantum lance weapons to bear on what they assumed was the primary threat, the carrier itself. It was exactly what Torres had trained her crews to expect. "Execute Operation Hornet's Nest," she commanded. The fighter swarms split into smaller groups, approaching the Kroner ships from multiple vectors. The aliens' point defense systems, designed to track and engage capital ships, struggled to lock onto the nimble fighters. When they adjusted their defense grid to target fighters, other squadrons slipped through the gaps. "First strikes confirmed," Wilson reported, excitement bleeding through his professional tone. "Their shields are holding, but they're having to constantly adjust coverage. They can't maintain a firing solution on us." Torres watched through the tactical feed as her fighters executed maneuvers that would have been impossible for larger ships. The Kroner vessels were powerful, but they had never faced an attack like this. Death by 1,000 cuts from opponents too small and numerous to effectively counter. "They're attempting to coordinate their shield harmonics," Walsh announced, "trying to create an overlapping defense grid." Just as the simulations predicted, Torres smiled. "Signal Beta and Gamma squadrons. Begin Phase 2. The fighters regrouped and attacked again, this time targeting specific points where the Kroner shields overlapped. It was a tactic that would have been suicidal for capital ships, but the fighters' speed and numbers made it devastatingly effective. Within minutes, the first Kroner battleship's shields failed. The other 2 vessels, realizing the danger, attempted to retreat into fold space. Torres let them go. They would carry the message better than any diplomatic cable could. As recovery operations began for the fighters, Torres received a transmission from Admiral Ramirez aboard the Mars Defense Station. "Exceptional work, Captain," Ramirez said, pride evident in her voice. "The Atlas just rewrote the rules of space warfare. And this is only the beginning." Looking at her crew's triumphant faces, Torres knew Ramirez was right. The Supercarrier hadn't just survived its trial by fire. It had demonstrated a new era of human innovation and tactical superiority. The Kroners would adapt, of course, but by then, humanity would be building more carriers. "Begin after-action analysis," she ordered. "I want every detail of this engagement studied. The Kroners will be back, and next time, they'll be ready for us. We need to be ready for them." As the Atlas continued its patrol, its fighters forming a protective screen around the massive vessel. Torres reflected on what they'd accomplished. Humanity had done more than just win a battle. They'd changed the fundamental nature of space warfare. The age of the supercarrier had begun, and with it, humanity's chance to forge its own destiny among the stars. Evolution of warfare. 6 months after the Atlas's first victory, the orbital shipyards above Mars and Earth worked at full capacity. 3 more supercarriers were under construction, each incorporating lessons learned from the Atlas's combat experiences. But Admiral Ramirez knew ships alone wouldn't be enough. Standing in the newly constructed Carrier Warfare Center on Luna, she watched as the next generation of carrier pilots trained in advanced combat simulators. Neural synchronization at 95% across all squadrons, reported Dr. Sarah Chen, monitoring the pilots' vital signs. The new quantum interface is performing beyond expectations. On the massive holographic display, fighters moved in complex formations that would have been impossible months ago. The quantum neural interface, developed from insights gained during the Atlas's first engagement, allowed pilots to coordinate on an almost instinctive level. Through their neural links, they shared not just tactical data, but spatial awareness, creating a collective combat consciousness that no eye could predict. "Show me Squadron Leader Patel's perspective," Ramirez requested. The display shifted, showing the view from Kiran Patel's lead fighter. Through her neural link, Patel commanded not just her own craft but coordinated with 12 eye-controlled drone fighters. More impressively, her squadron moved in perfect synchronization with 4 others, creating fluid attack patterns that adapted in real time to simulated Kroner defenses. "They've learned," Captain Wilson noted, studying the tactical readouts. "The Kroners are deploying smaller escort vessels now, trying to counter our fighter swarms, which is exactly what we wanted." Ramirez smiled. "Every resource they divert to point defense is one they can't use for offensive weapons. Commander Walsh, show them the new countermeasures." In the simulation, new vessels appeared alongside the carrier groups. Designated as Phantom-class electronic warfare ships, they began broadcasting conflicting sensor signatures, creating ghost fighter formations indistinguishable from real ones. Meanwhile, stealth frigates designated Shadowblade class slipped through the chaos, their advanced sensor suites gathering critical intelligence on Kroner defensive systems. "The key is synchronization," Dr. Victor Santos explained, pulling up development metrics. Each carrier group operates as a single organism, fighters, support ships, and the carrier itself, all linked through the quantum interface. The more carriers we network together, the more complex the patterns we can create. The simulation demonstrated his point as 3 carrier groups executed a coordinated attack. Fighters flowed between the massive vessels like schools of fish, using each carrier's bulk as cover while launching strikes from unexpected angles. The Kroner defenders, programmed with their latest observed tactics, struggled to maintain coherent defense patterns. Their targeting systems are designed to track large ships or small fighter groups, Santos continued. But when we network hundreds of fighters across multiple carriers, we create fluid combat formations that their predictive systems can't handle. Ramirez nodded, watching as the simulation concluded with another victory for the human forces. "How many carriers can we network with current quantum entanglement technology?" "Theoretically, up to 8 without significant degradation. Beyond that, we'd need to develop new protocols." "Make it happen," Ramirez ordered. "The Kroners won't sit idle. They're already adapting their tactics, and we need to stay ahead of them." As if to emphasize her point, a priority message flashed across the command center's displays. Kroner activity had been detected in 3 systems simultaneously. They were probing human defenses, testing responses, looking for weaknesses in the new carrier doctrine. "They're learning," Wilson observed grimly. "Good," Ramirez replied. "Because so are we. Signal all carrier groups. Begin Operation Hydra." Across human space, carriers and their support vessels began moving into new defensive positions. Unlike traditional military doctrine, that relied on static fortifications, the carrier groups maintained constant mobility, never staying in one place long enough for the Kroners to mount a concentrated attack. The strategy demanded incredible coordination and resources, but it played to humanity's strengths. While the Kroners excelled at pitched battles between capital ships, humans had centuries of experience with mobile warfare and rapid deployment doctrine. Status update on the new carriers. Ramirez asked. HES Prometheus will launch next month, Santos reported. Orion and Artemis, 3 months after that. The new construction facilities in the asteroid belt will cut production time by 30% for future vessels. Ramirez studied the strategic display, showing human carrier groups moving like pieces on a vast cosmic chessboard. Each carrier represented more than just military power. They were symbols of human innovation and adaptability. While the Kroners refined their existing technology, humanity had created something entirely new. Begin the next simulation, she ordered. Run the Epsilon protocols. Let's see how our pilots handle multiple carrier coordination. As the simulation began, Ramirez reflected on how far they'd come. The Atlas's first victory had been impressive, but what they were developing now went far beyond simple combat tactics. They were creating a new form of space warfare, one that combined human creativity with artificial intelligence in ways never before imagined. The Kroners had spent centuries perfecting their approach to space combat, building ever more powerful weapons and stronger shields. But humans had done what they did best. They changed the rules of the game entirely. The age of the supercarrier wasn't just about bigger ships or better weapons. It was about reimagining what was possible. In the simulation chamber below, another group of pilots entered the neural interface pods, ready to push the boundaries of what carrier warfare could achieve. The future of human space combat was evolving, and with it, humanity's place among the stars. The turning point. The alert came at 300 Earth Standard Time. 40 Kroner capital ships had emerged from fold space at the edge of the Sol system, accompanied by over 200 support vessels. Operation Starfall, the Kroner Empire's largest offensive, had begun. Admiral Ramirez stood on the bridge of HSF Atlas, now her flagship, watching as tactical displays showed the massive Kroner fleet advancing in perfect formation. Around Earth, 6 carrier battle groups had already taken their defensive positions, their crews ready for the fight of their lives. All carriers reporting quantum neural synchronization complete. Captain Torres announced from her station. Fighter squadrons prepped for launch. Support vessels in position. Ramirez nodded, studying the tactical display. The Kroner fleet approached in their characteristic spear formation, designed to concentrate their quantum lance batteries for maximum effect. A year ago, such a sight would have struck terror into any human commander. Now, it brought a slight smile to her face. They're still fighting the last war, she observed. Signal all carriers. Commence Operation Stormfront. The response was immediate and overwhelming. From 6 carriers, waves of fighters erupted into space. But these weren't the same tactics that had won their first victory. Months of evolution in carrier warfare had created something far more sophisticated. Fighter squadrons merged into larger formations, their movements coordinated through the quantum neural network. Electronic warfare vessels projected phantom signatures, while stealth frigates slipped through the chaos to gather targeting data. The space around Earth became alive with movement, a dance of human ingenuity and machine precision. The Kroners responded with their own innovations. Point defense grids activated, more dense and coordinated than ever before. Smaller escort vessels moved to intercept fighter groups, while their capital ships maintained tight formation discipline. They've adapted well, Commander Walsh noted, monitoring the tactical feeds. Their new defensive protocols are making it harder to find weak points. Then we show them something they haven't seen yet, Ramirez replied. Signal all carriers. Initiate Hydra protocol. The human formation suddenly shifted. Instead of operating as individual battle groups, the carriers began moving in concert, their fighter screens interweaving in impossible patterns. Through the quantum neural network, thousands of pilots and AI systems coordinated with perfect precision, creating combat formations that evolved faster than any defense grid could predict. Kroner fleet is approaching optimal weapons range, Torres reported. They're charging quantum lances. Execute Phase 2, Ramirez ordered. The human fighters split into smaller groups, but instead of attacking directly, they began creating what appeared to be gaps in the defense. The Kroners, seeing what looked like weaknesses in the human formation, took the bait. Their capital ships adjusted course, preparing to punch through the perceived holes. They're committing, Walsh announced. Primary strike force is moving into position. Ramirez allowed herself a grim smile. Now, the gaps in the human defense suddenly vanished as hidden fighter squadrons emerged from the electronic warfare cover. The Kroner fleet found itself caught in a three-dimensional web of fighters, each carrier group attacking from a different vector. What had appeared to be weaknesses in the human formation were actually carefully crafted kill zones. Multiple hits confirmed, Torres called out. Their coordinated shield grid is destabilizing. 2 capital ships have lost primary power. But the Kroners weren't finished. Their remaining ships executed a complex maneuver, attempting to break through the encirclement with concentrated fire. Energy beams powerful enough to vaporize small moons lashed out at the human carriers. Atlas taking hits, Walsh reported. Shields at 60% and falling. Maintain position, Ramirez ordered. The carriers can take it. Keep pressure on their flanks. Through the quantum neural network, she could feel the coordination of thousands of fighters and their pilots, each moving according to both training and instinct. The Kroners had superior technology, but they were fighting with predictable, programmed responses. Humanity was fighting with creativity, adaptability, and a level of coordination their enemies couldn't match. Their formation is breaking up, Torres announced. Multiple ships attempting emergency fold space jumps. Don't let them regroup, Ramirez commanded. All carriers, execute final attack pattern. End this. The human fighters surged forward in a final, overwhelming assault. Carriers moved in perfect synchronization, their combined fighter screens creating an impenetrable wall of firepower. The Kroner fleet, its carefully planned formation shattered, found itself fighting individual battles against an enemy that seemed to be everywhere at once. When it was over, the results were beyond even Ramirez's most optimistic projections. 15 Kroner capital ships destroyed, 20 more severely damaged, and the remainder retreating in disarray. The greatest armada the Kroner Empire had ever assembled had been decisively defeated. Signal from Earth Defense Command, Torres reported. The Kroner Empire is requesting immediate diplomatic contact. Ramirez looked out at the battlefield, where cleanup operations were already beginning. Human fighters were returning to their carriers, while rescue ships moved to assist damaged vessels, both human and Kroner. They had won more than just a battle. They had changed the balance of power in the galaxy. Send response, she ordered. Tell them we're ready to discuss terms, but make sure they understand. The era of Kroner technological superiority is over. Humanity is ready to take its place as equals among the stars. As the adrenaline of battle faded, Ramirez reflected on the journey that had brought them here. The Kroners had pushed humanity to the brink, but in doing so, they had forced humans to innovate, to think differently, to create something entirely new. The Supercarriers weren't just weapons. They were proof that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in copying others, but in forging its own path. The age of the Supercarrier had changed the face of space warfare forever. More importantly, it had secured humanity's future among the stars, not through overwhelming force or technological superiority, but through the uniquely human qualities of innovation, adaptation, and the unwavering determination to find a better way.